you. To the community section of the agenda, we would like to hear from some of our guests. If we could start with Mayor Cleaver.
Yes, well, thank you for letting me be a part of this. We come in and talk to all of you. I've gone to a couple of district council meetings, events, gatherings. I've really enjoyed the time to spend in these different district councils. I've learned actually quite a bit. I feel like they have been underutilized, and you're all the closest to the issues within the areas and also understanding the residents who live there. So I really value you all as a resource. I'm looking forward to figuring out how to better get information from all of you to inform me in the work that I'm doing. We have just been really reeling from the last 2 months of just being responding to what was happening with Operation Metro Surge. And so we are just now finally getting to a place that we want to start looking at how to proactively partner so that we can utilize and leverage what all of you are doing. And also, if there are things that you would like for me to show up to that you think is important for me to see or know, please let our office know as well, because I want to show up as much in the community as possible. I was just at an event yesterday down at West 7th. I think it was their annual meeting. District 9, right, Nick? Was it District 9 we were at? Yes, it was just, they had a huge gathering, and I think sometimes we forget how strong some of our district councils are and how much work that they do on behalf of our city. And it is so critical for us to remember to lift that up and support them in their work. And so I took on a number of things that they're doing in their area, and I'm going to join them in planting trees and going to meetings and looking at issues that are important to them. And I want to make sure that all the district councils know that I want to be available to them in the same way as well. So thank you for letting me be here and sharing a little bit about what we've been dealing with, but also like where we want to go. And there will be more proactive communication forward just when we have more of a plan formulated, and we'll move that forward. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Nick, I have you on my list too. Do you have any updates for us?
No, I mean, so I'll just say I signed up first, and then we weren't sure if the mayor was able to come, but I'm definitely the second banana for anything to that. The mayor did a good job of basically, summing up our engagement with district councils. I think Zoe's a fantastic resource. The departments that I have include planning and economic development, safety inspections, public works, so a lot of things that folks on district councils care about. There's other areas of work too that I think other of our leadership staff can work through and work on. But I'm always happy to be a resource for everyone as they're looking at different things to care about the city. And I think Chevik and I are in a lot of good communication on some of the work that's happening and making sure folks feel plugged in. So feel free, however you want to reach out to our office. We're happy to be a resource.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to just lift up our staff and the work that they do with, we have an outstanding website that outlines things that are going on in the community, plus past initiatives, very organized, lots of details to get out information there. And our annual Jessica, we have 4 events that occur in different sub-districts throughout the year. And we wouldn't be able to do any of that without our staff, so I just wanted to lift them up for that. So,
I see something being lifted up over there. Is that's they're coming event?
That's just right over there. These are the 4 major events. I guess 5 this year.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to say we have 4 events. We have like 12 events. And whenever you talk to your office about typically our largest event, the ice cream social that it takes place here, we get about 700 people here, so yeah.
Wow, it's fantastic.
And I'll say this too, as this is my district council, it's kind of like when you are coaching a team and your kid is playing on the team. I'm trying not to overly favor, but very excited to be plugged in this way too with the work we're all doing, and my boys just love the ice cream social. So.
We also accept being the favorite child.
Oh, I
think we've got Molly up next.
Hi, everybody. I feel like we've been sitting in the wrong spot. Over here. Also, you're waiting for no study. Also here. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I was thinking as I was on my way here about the last D10 meeting that I was at, which was the day when Good was killed. Was here with the audit committee doing a very different conversation than what I think was on everybody's mind. It's also obviously you'll remember early January, so coming here today. When there was actually green on the trees, which I had not noticed, literally I was on my way here, so when did this happen? Just, I don't know, it was an interesting opportunity to sort of, as the mayor was saying, and, think about what the last couple of months have been like, the last 5-6 months really for our community, our neighborhood, what it's done for our city, how it has just kind of changed everything about what, whatever plans we might have had for 2026, whatever we thought we would be working on was just thrown out the window as we had to be truly all hands on deck in every single way we possibly could be, using every tool at our disposal to respond to Operation Metro Surge, to respond to the attacks on the community, and to think about how do we show up as neighbors, as humans, but also, for those of us who have other roles, how do we show up as city council members? How do we show up as people who are able to do different things in the city? So anyway, I was just thinking about that and thinking about how much of that work has really been guided by what we've been hearing from folks in every neighborhood of the city, what we've been hearing about what the need is, how people's communities are being impacted. And it has been, and I don't need to tell anybody here this, but it has been such an incredibly heavy time for our community. But like the mayor also said, we are now, I'm still reluctant to use phrasing like on the other side of it, because we aren't in so many ways, and like the economic recovery is still here and the emotional recovery is still here, and there's so much that we are not on the other side of yet. But we are also now, I think, speaking for those of us on the council, able to have a little bit more breathing room to think about what else do we need to be doing, what are our other priorities, how else are we supporting the community moving forward, what other needs are we hearing and how are we responding to them. So just maybe want to say a couple of things about priorities for the next few months. Actually, and it's nice that me and Councilmember Kim are both here. We are two of the council members will be working on administrative citations. As everybody here knows, we had an election in November where we finally solidified the power of the city to levy administrative citations, which is super important. Well, I've obviously heard about this for a very long time, so I don't need to go into why they're so important, but a huge new tool that the city has, but it's also an incredible operation to stand them up and think about how do we leverage this tool effectively, equitably in order to advance the goals that we share as a city. So it's going to be a big kind of all hands on deck city moment in a very different way than the last few months have been, but thinking about how we get those in place and how we use them to make this a better, fairer, more just city. So really excited about that work, and there's going to be a ton of opportunities for community engagement around that. So it's definitely something we'll be reaching out to the district councils about and kind of in an ongoing conversation there. And I think that on everybody's mind, and it was the first time that I was here right after the election, talking to you all about what does it look like to drive economic development in the city of St. Paul? What does it look like to grow the pie? How do we take the burden off of property taxpayers, off of the renters, when property taxes are passed on? Take Commissioner McMurtrey's thunder. There are some really exciting things happening in the county related to economic development, but it's also something that we're constantly thinking about on the council and the city as a whole is what are we doing to grow that pie, to bring the vibrancy that we need to see in the community. I don't talk about maybe too much, but since it's so close to Como, when you're smelling a university lately, you will see that there is a lot of really exciting progress happening. We are getting some long promised development around the soccer stadium. You will also potentially have seen it that the CBS is no more. Yeah, I've never, I think she has like a month. I'm not into that. I'm gonna old. I'm gonna keep bringing it up. But anyway, I think that there's a lot of places where we're moving forward, but we know that there's still so much more to be done. I think it's a top priority for truly everybody in City Hall. So that's all what's coming up. There's obviously a lot more. Just wanted to hit on a couple of the highlights since this is the annual meeting and sort of looking at what might the year ahead look like. Obviously we can't totally predict as we have learned, but those are a couple of things that we are thinking about in the Ward 4 office. And then I'll just echo the mayor for a third time and say we are always eager to find ways to be a partner, to be a collaborator. I think that that's sort of like the high level things that we want to be working on, but there are so many other pieces that we hear literally every single day from community members about what are the small changes that we can make, what are the tweaks, what are the programs that we need to be really investing in, where are one of the things we hear from D10 is how are we thinking about our Airbnbs? How are we thinking about our short-term rentals? What are the things that are affecting the quality of life for people throughout the city that the council can be more engaged in addressing? So doors always open. Finished to be here. I will hand it over.
Thanks, Molly.
So,
Yeah, it's actually been great. Molly and I have worked on a bunch of different things together already. I think. Yeah, it's been tough. I think I'll just echo that. One of my first immigration check-ins was with Mayor Burr. June 11th was one of the first ones that we attended, that I attended, where families were reaching out asking for sort of like support and assistance. And August 8th, I became a constitutional observer. We had our first raid here in the North End, in my ward in the North End, early October. And then since then, my office has trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of constitutional observers to take the streets. Como, how many of you are in your signal chat? Some of you I have now met only by your signal name, but I just want to really commend the way that all of you have shown up. So many of our dispatchers were from Como. So many of our dispatchers were from Como. So many of our rapid responders and folks that were running mutual aid were from Como for other neighborhoods. So I just really want to emphasize that I'm really proud to represent you because like you, I jumped into the fold. And it meant a lot to the folks that don't live in your neighborhood, but live in my neighborhood, live on the east side. So, it's been we're not quite on the other side yet. Families still need a lot of assistance. So actually tomorrow night, my office is pulling together all the hyper locals. We've got about just shy of 300 folks. It's going to be at St. Timothy's Church. I'm sorry if you didn't hear about it, but it's mostly because we're trying to plug leads from every single neighborhood. And we said no more than 15 because there's 17 neighborhoods. We've got just shy of about 300 folks coming to St. Timothy's Church tomorrow night to talk about what's next. What happens to the rapid response infrastructure that we built? What happens to the mutual aid? How are we going to be addressing detention centers? What's sort of like the next iteration of what this looks like? And then furthering, like, how do we make sure then we are protecting our polls coming up? We have a statewide primary, we have a statewide election coming up, and we want to make sure that impacted communities feel safe going to the polls. So stay tuned. We'll learn a lot more from sort of the experts of that space, but I just wanted to start it like all of us with deep, deep gratitude. I've met so many residents and constituents, and they've introduced me to me by their signal name. And some of them are great. Don't show them all up, but just some of them are fantastic. So thank you for everything that you've done. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. So then, we are gonna get a little more information, like around kind of the impacts of like what all we just experienced, but also like it's sort of decimating so much of our economy right now. So we're gonna continue to learn more. I know the mayor's been really committed and is such an incredible partner in all of this. We have passed many different ordinances in response to sort of Operation Metro Surge. It's not over yet. The state is looking to pass some rental assistance. It's on a bill's on its way to Ways and Means. So hopefully we see the state also pumping out rental assistance. So that's sort of like ICE stuff. It's next week. We'll pass the training and reporting ordinance next week, which will be really great. And then my office has been working really diligently with PED and the city attorney's office to sort of establish a detention moratorium. We want to just learn a little bit more about like where they're cropping up and what kinds of, places do they like to identify. And we're sort of hoping to use that similar language with a shared interest with Ward 4 around what does it look like then to just better understand the impacts of data centers. So data centers are a really hot topic right now. They have huge economic, but also environmental. So we're just sort of interested in learning a lot more around like, what does that look like when they come into your community? Some of the things that we are looking at just in terms of like pushing policy to the pipe, we're looking at establishing sort of like a trans refuge in St. Paul. Gender affirming care is under attack. Children's hospital almost went down and stopped providing gender affirming care. And now we see that happening, those attacks at the city level. So what does it look like in St. Paul for us to kind of draw the line in the sand? Truthfully, I don't know what that's gonna look like. I don't know what sort of levers we hold, but it's certainly something that we're gonna reach out to the Attorney General and John Choi, what I can't think of his title. County Attorney John Choi, yeah. We're looking at, removing the disability wages, some of the exemptions from minimum, 15 minimum wage. Molly brought, removing the exemption for youth wages up to the policy committee, and so we're really looking at kind of what does that look like. I'm also interested in raising the minimum wage, but not if it feels tone deaf. So right now, you know, we don't have livable wages, but also the small businesses and folks that are providing jobs, they are really struggling right now. And so this is like a long on-ramp, but it's one that we're looking at, starting to discuss. And then the big one that we're looking at, besides hosting our budget engagement session, is we're gonna host, and like, just like this is a secret, but we are getting a rec track intern. And they are going to be hosting, the first of its kind, and you'll be invited, obviously, is a state of our youth. And so we have a St. Paul Planning Commissioner, a St. Paul Youth Commissioner, who's gonna pull together youth across the city from different walks of life. And we're gonna sort of set it up as if it's the state of our city, but led by our youth and the city. So stay tuned, please come. We're gonna try to like set it up as if, it's similar to a state of the city address. But then we're gonna use some of their ideas and bring it forward as, budget priorities for Ward 5. So I'm hoping to have cool ideas. This summer, they'll kind of do a mock budget, and I'm going to judge sort of what some of their ideas look like. And hopefully, I can convince some of my colleagues to buy into some of those cool ideas. But we'll do a visioning session for our budget engagement this year. I think we were the only office to do a youth focused budget engagement session. And we plan on doing something similar, but we also want to start visioning what our future looks like together. Authoritarianism wants to remove your ability to dream. And so I don't want folks to say like, would you fund this? Would you fund this? But I want to ask the questions like, when you dream about like a wild, liberated future, what does that look like to you? And so we're going to try to find a graphic artist to kind of like illustrate together what our Ward 5 priorities will look like this year. Those are a few of the things that we've been up to. Please continue to reach out to the office. I think specific to Como, that like H-line thing is like wild. So someone please just tell me it's in the big version. Yeah, and just again, just deep gratitude the way that you've all shown up. Some of the strongest community response that I saw across the city came out of Como. So thank you again.
Garrison.
All right, I am, I apologize now for my voice. I've determined, with having an 8-month-old that's in daycare, I'm in this continued cycle of just being sick. So I'm getting over a head cold, but, no, I echo everything that's been said already in regards to the response, that this community made, during federal occupation. Just, I continue gratitude to this organization and just to all our neighbors. I think this is something to Council Member Coleman's point, this is something that is not over, that we are still feeling the remnants of and will for generations to come. And so how are we going to move forward? How are we going to build from this is a part of this next phase. And so a couple of things that the county has done, and I'll break it down into 3 different areas. So the county sheriff has made very clear to the board, to the community, that we will not be participating in any detaining, that we will not be adhering to 287G, anything that would involve our local law enforcement moving forward with any immigration enforcement, we will not be doing. The county attorney, as you may have seen this past week, has taken the steps to start investigations on those federal agents who were absolutely committing crimes, and will continue to do so for residents who bring forward information to investigate those and potentially bring charges. That's something that we know is crucial to bring to justice what has happened to so many folks in our community. And then as a board, we've taken a couple steps to direct our county manager to not only ensure that our residents continue to receive the services that they need, move a lot of things to virtual, just to ensure that they felt safe getting a lot of those resources, but also making sure that our staff feels up to date and that they know their rights, that they know how to handle different situations that could easily arise if federal agents were to enter our facilities. But also looking at the next phase, we have invested $75,000 into children mental health clinic here in Ramsey County, as well as extending by 2 months the first half of the year property tax deadline for residents and for businesses who have been directly impacted by Operation Metro Village. So this is online. If you know folks, there's an application for folks to fill out, but we want to make sure that we have that extension to give folks a bit of cushion for what they've had to endure these last few months. In addition to having the onslaught of terror that has been brought upon our communities by the federal government, we're also dealing with what's to come with the cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP. That piece is going to be really, really important for the county. Minnesota is really unique in that we are one of probably 10 states in the country where counties administer SNAP and Medicaid. And so the different cuts and cost shifts that we've already been seeing coming our way is something that we're going to have to pick up the cost on. And so for this legislative session, this is something that we are really, really pushing on because we're going to need the state's assistance on this. Because at the end of the day, if we don't, we know where the cost is going to go to, and that's the property tax owners. So we've been pushing at the legislature the need for a number of things: tech modernization, our very archaic systems that we use to implement this work needs to finally change, but also working with a number of different agencies to ensure, mostly DHS and DCYF, to make sure that we are figuring out how the state can play its role as we are adjusting to these changes that are coming this year into next year. So more to come on that, but those are a few areas that we're working on. But on a brighter kind of team up from Council Member Coleman, looking towards the future and how we can really expand that pie, how can we grow and spur more economic growth in our community. We just announced yesterday at the county that we're investing over $300 million in investments, economic investments throughout the community. One that's centered around investing in downtown, specifically looking at housing and of course the Parks at River's Edge project that the county is taking lead on. The other piece is looking at county-owned land and selling county-owned land to make sure that we are increasing our housing stock, that we're investing in commercial opportunities, that we're looking at ways that we can grow our tax base so that we can shift a lot of that burden away from property taxes. And so this is an announcement that I'm really, really proud of, because it's something that's going to take all of us. It's going to take the county, it's going to take the city, it's going to take the state. We look at what's ahead of us and the success of the county. A lot of that depends on the success of St. Paul. And there is so much opportunity and promise as we look at downtown. And I think that this is just going to be another way to kind of bring about this renaissance of downtown St. Paul and what that looks like. And so we are excited to be working in collaboration with all of our partners to get this done and hopefully just really grow economically across our community. So those are just a few things. Of course, reach out to my office if you need anything. Not here tonight, but she would be your main person. Let me know if there's anything you need on my end, and happy to answer your questions. Or that's all I have.
Great, thanks so much. It was a very exciting announcement to see. I was really happy to see the news about the investment in downtown and the connection to the river. As you know, some of you may know, I worked at a bookstore in downtown, and not being able to connect to the riverfront always felt like a disconnect when you were just standing around downtown. Like that, there's such a it's such a resource that we don't have access to enough as being downtown. So I was really excited to see that announcement. Any questions for any of our folks here who have joined us tonight? Okay, well, I'll make another comment then. I had an opportunity through my current work to do the county, see the county's work that you guys do with the staff, and how archaic doesn't even really begin to describe how old these systems are. Some of these counties are working on systems that are older than I am, so like in the 80s. And yeah, access. Yeah. It's really wicked stuff, and I mean, we're talking about how counties are dealing with, fraud and all this stuff, and not being able to have programs and services or software and technology that makes it easier for people to access these services is a really important issue.
Absolutely, and it will further add to the potential, economic harm that we have on us as a county, especially with some of the new rules that they're implementing under HR1 in regards to like the error rate, which they look at not even each county, they look at it as a state of a certain level of an error rate they were allowed to have. If we don't have the proper technology to do these things, you're gonna have more of those errors that's gonna be happening, whether folks realize it or not. So it is beyond time that we update our technology. And I'm happy to see, at least from the conversations that we have had with legislators this session, this is something that has gained some momentum across the aisle. So I think folks are realizing that regardless of your political affiliation, you're going to see this impact across the state. And so we're seeing more folks wanting to get on board with finally making this update.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Kind of seeing where we're located here, I was curious, maybe you are all already working on this, or maybe it's something we need to come back and have another conversation with you all about, but being in this park here, we look at the financial, like just stability of our city. We have a huge responsibility for this really wonderful park. But this is one of the accounts that is running at a negative at the city right now. Like, so the revenues that we generate from it does not cover the expenses of this. This is actually a state asset, but the state has been making this a St. Paul responsibility. So that we have a bonding ask for the Big Cats exhibit. We have asked for, the bonding request for like the geothermal for, some of the construction we're doing. But truthfully, there's just a lot in this part that we really should be getting assistance from the state from. There's a portion of a tax that gets, the state set in statute that they would give us, I think 40% of this particular funding, but we really get 10% of it, right? So I'm curious as to like how much you all are sort of plugged into this issue, because, I'm really kind of in a desperate place where I'm at the legislature multiple times a week, either whether I'm advocating for the rent payments from Operation Metro Surge, or the economic support for our small businesses, or the public safety needs for our city, because we are the capital city, and we take on all of the costs of what are other things that happen when it's actually, something is not even related to our city, right? And so our city's taken on a lot of extra costs. This is one of those things that the state should be helping us with. I'm just curious how plugged in are all of you in this particular issue and advocating for it, or like having a plan for us to maybe, center some of that work and using the power of the people, since you all show up and you're contributing so much. How do we leverage some of that energy to push forward and say, we have to protect this asset, and the state needs to step up? Just curious.
To be honest, that's the first I've heard.
Really?
I don't know if other board members have, I've not even missed a meeting. But
You would have heard this is a long time going, because we are only one of 5 free parks left in the country, free zoos in the country.
I think the way that this comes to the board somewhat regularly is honestly with the operator turnover at the pavilion. Right, because that is when you think about like the business that looks like a business, right? That operates and looks like a business within Como Park. That's kind of it for us, right? And what we often hear is, people want it to be a family friendly space. They don't want it to be super expensive, but they also want it to be high quality. They want the hours to be longer. They want the programming, but not too loud of programming. And it's, I think that from or at least the district council's perspective, that's really the only place where we get asked to weigh
Would
in.
you like to be more involved in some of this work, or are you like, it's too much?
we've heard about.
Oh, yeah, send letters to the bonding committee around the Big Hat Museum, or Big Hat, bridge, Big Hat exhibits.
And I did share that bonding thing because I saw it in the Ward 5 news.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like from a district council staff perspective, and I've been involved in 3 or 4 different district councils in different roles, but our capacities generally don't include state level items. And obviously this is intertwined with the city issue and the neighborhood issue in our case, but I just I don't have I've spent years now learning the intricacies of how the city works, and that's where our funding comes from. That's what our engagement contract is for.
that I don't have the knowledge base of the county very much, or especially the state level. Some of my board members teach me everything I know about the state, because they're more involved in those levels of things. And so it's just my experiential deficiency on where those levers are and when to pull them are just, it's not there.
Well, maybe it's just, we'll put some thought around it and figure out, how's the best way to engage all of you, because this will be an ongoing issue that we're working through. And there are multiple bonding projects being requested for the Como area here. It's not just the big cat exhibit, but the, the work around the, what's the building called?
Yeah,
The geothermal.
the observatory, yeah.
And, there's multiple things happening, but there's also some considerations of what we need to try to do to generate more revenues out of here, because we work on a donation basis, and donations have not increased, but the cost of managing everything has. And I don't think a lot of times people understand, then our taxpayers in our city end up paying for the cost of everything, but we are the most used park in the state, and we have the most visitors from out of town than any other park in the state. And so there's a lot happening here. And so we'll think about it a little bit, figure out how we can engage, so you all can just even even if you do nothing, you can at least know what's going on and how we're fighting for the area here for all of you.
To be clear, I have heard about the zoo and conservatory,
Yeah.
the cost of that, but I think we can help advocate. At a state level, if we know what the bills are and issues are to.
We can send out another newsletter to include all of these, but I think, is that where you saw it in ours was?
Yeah.
Like, hey, if
Right.
you have time, please write into the bottom. So we're happy to, I think, what I hear is that people don't always know when to push or where to push. You're interested, right? But navigating that, so I think that's we can.
Well, yeah, we'll have a discussion, because just so you know, there's always multiple priorities, and there's we have a ton of bonding requests. This is
Yeah.
one of them, but we might only get two. And so we have to make that decision at the city level. But there are many things that happen here around, there's a bill that I think is really interesting about Senator Dibble and Senator Hurt put together to figure out how to generate more revenue across the state for the park system, so that we can get some of that here into our park, for Como here. So that type of bill is actually something that would be really good for you all to help us advocate for, because that's new revenue. We're probably never gonna get bonding, because there's so many priorities, and getting a bonding get through is probably impossible, and since we're at the end of session now, I think we might be a little late to that game. So I don't wanna make you all do work that might not move it, but this bill that Senator Dibble and Senator Hurd putting through, that's a very doable thing, and that generates new revenue so that we can try to get some of those revenues in. So, well, let me think about it a little bit, and we'll bring it back, work with Councilmember Kim and Coleman, and figure out how to bring some of that forward.
One topic we did kind of, in fall was, in Falcon Heights, they're exploring, in fact, they implemented this year, charging for parking on street during the state fair. I don't think that's a huge source of revenue, but it is something local to Cornwall that could potentially.
We've been thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what you all think, yeah, there's.
And it's thought about it too, yeah. And I think the former mayor thought about that too, and how it goes.
How much of a hole are we talking about?
A lot.
A lot. It operates at a deficit every year, and it's held within our fund balance. And so the fund balance is sort of your savings account that the bank requires you to have to be credit worthy. And so part of our AAA credit score is basically saying the city's got an 800 credit score. It is because we've got great savings, but we had a pretty decent hit to it for a lawsuit that we need to replenish. But if the fund balance is where the zoo sits, and it operates at a deficit. So while we can kind of make up for it, it doesn't change the fact that we have something that's just continually operating at a deficit. And it's great. And it's sort of it's just it's not a problem child. I don't want to call it that, but it's
Now, there's a lot of negative offense families in the city, so this isn't the only one, but
right.
this one I think has the most problem, the probability of solving it is greater, because it is a state asset, and we would like for the state to step up to pay for some portion of that. So that's why I just bring it forward, is because this is something we could, if we, could get some additional revenues to help out that.
So we have the geothermal that got put in, but there's an awful lot that could be done at solar over parking spaces that are, help with our, environment too, to keep the, cooling the parking lots and things like that. I don't know if that helps, money generation, or at least covering, keeping the lights on here. But there are so many little parking lots that if those could have some sort of, solar cover over them, it might kill two birds with one stone and.
The only problem is you need a huge capital overlay in order
Yeah.
to put that project in, and the problem is we can't ever access that capital because of all the competing projects, so it's a great idea, we just, we'll keep thinking through it too, but just know, maybe we'll bring something forward, and even if it's just keeping you all posted as to like the work that we're doing, so that you know what we're fighting for, and fighting for the area that impacts all.
I'm always, we have historically seen that we can activate lots of people around the park.
Yeah.
Right, and that is.
Apparently 800 people.
That's right. Yes, yes,
So-
yes, a point of activation, for all sorts of things, some of them we don't anticipate, like the H line, right? And so I think that even if. I would say that in general, I think the ward council tries to pay attention. We try to maintain close relationships with our district council folks, the other district council folks, the city council folks. And there's a lot of power and possibility here. If you are looking to like, where are we getting letters out? Where are we activating people? I think that we are a good conduit for that.
Yeah.
And I certainly think we have a track record of people being willing to step up.
Well, just know more information be coming, I mean, this is probably too, like, much for you all to need to know, but like their deadline for the legislature is this coming Friday, so we're too late for anything that we might want to introduce. And then they'll be doing all the negotiations starting after next week, and so like whatever, we can maybe plan on, what does it look like for next session, right? What are the things that we might want to activate and plan and put people forward on, and especially that Dibble her bill that asks, you know, that I think what they're planning on doing was like charging an additional fee when you renew your license or something like that, that goes to parks and things like that. So that we get a portion of that. And so that, like, that seems like to me, like quite an easy thing we can sort of push out to everyone, because they're looking for support in that too. So that might be a really good doable one for all of us, but more to come, okay? We'll be sending that. Or working with the council members to figure out how we kind of coordinate. So, yeah. You guys have all of the connections in the councils.
It's also very nice to hear that you recognize and that more people ought to recognize that this is a statewide asset. It's not just something for this part of St. Paul or St. Paul as a city, but this is a statewide asset, and people come from all over the world to come to our services. Jeremy runs a park run here where people come to run in the park, and people come from all over the world to run here. So it's an asset that more of the state should invest in. So it's good to hear that you're.
Absolutely.
And when you read reviews of the park and the zoo, the number one comment is,
Yeah.
I can't believe it's free.
Right.
People are scouting that too, but they love that too. So.
Imagine if you could take a fast bus to the zoo. Sorry. Sorry.
Not tonight.
And I need to head out, but I just really want to say thank you for letting me be a part of this, and more to come. We'll figure out how to get information to all of you, and then sort of how do we get everything back so we can all work together on really important things like this part. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.